I'd like to welcome everybody to our August 2nd meeting of the Policy Committee. We're going to go right to the agenda. We're going to start with 1.01. I'm going to hand the floor over to our Acting Superintendent, Onyx Peterson.
So the policy committee wanted to bring back the 12:30 on public comment. And there was two questions that I know that the board needed to consider. The first was the amount of time for the public comment session. When the second was when the public comment appears within the actual timeline of the meeting. And also the public's discussion about individual students, staff, or person wishing to discuss the highlighted portion of the policy also needed to be discussed by committee.
Board members, any questions? Mr. Bergarelli?
No, I don't.
Okay, I have a few questions, Ms. Peterson. So if you go to paragraph 5, it says parent. Shouldn't it be parent or guardian?
Oh, wait, you said paragraph up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No person may speak who is not a resident, the parent of a student, or say parent or guardian.
Guardian, that's what I thought. Okay, and the 16-minute prior to the adjournment speak, items should be during the course of the meeting. Shouldn't that, where it says non-agenda items, shouldn't it be the whole, I thought the whole purpose we discussed, that ending session was in case anybody had questions on what has transpired at the meeting.
Right, so the last time the policy committee met, you guys wanted to have the public comment on agenda item moved up to the top to
That's
respect
correct.
people's time, but then I think it was also a discussion that it was important to also have a portion, a 16-minute portion at the end, just in case someone throughout the course of the meeting wanted to comment. So it was almost like two areas, at the top and at the bottom of the meeting.
But if you look in the first paragraph, last sentence, it says, permitted to speak on non-agenda items for no more than 2 minutes. I thought the whole.
No, it would be for agenda items.
Correct.
It would be for agenda items.
what I
That's what the discussion was. I mean, I think it would be at your
Okay.
discretion, but I think when the committee spoke, it was about agenda. So something that transpired in the meeting.
Correct.
That was about the meeting, that you would allow that time at the end.
That is
Because
correct.
non-agenda just would really could open many.
That is correct. Okay, and the last thing, I think this is for David. David, I think we had a discussion in regards to the students and allowing the parents or the people to speak. But when I believe I asked you a question, does that include staff, teachers' names cannot be mentioned? Did you tell me that that was in another policy that covers that? Or should that be in this policy?
Yeah, I don't think that's in another policy. It would be here, addressed here.
Okay, so how do we feel about that, board members? Because if they can't, if they're allowed to speak, a parent, my understanding is that they're allowed to speak their child's name, but they should be precluded from mentioning any staff, correct?
Well, that's your decision.
Ray?
Thank you. Yeah, in order to maintain consistency with what we've done in the past, you can't mention the good, can't mention the bad type thing, you know what I mean? That's consistent.
Okay, so how do we include that in this policy, David?
Pardon me, after the student part, if you wanted to make a statement about staff or faculty, if you wanted to add something about that, and is it that you don't want them to speak about staff or faculty?
Naming staff or faculty, correct.
Right. Well, you have that other issue of the dance around it, where they may describe the person by position and everyone knows who you're talking about anyway. So do you want to go further and address it that way, not to identify?
Mr. McCoy.
I wasn't at the last policy committee meeting. My reflection from the last board meeting is what's up there now is you guys wanted it, only parents can talk about their individual students. But you guys want to allow people at the podium to talk good or bad about district personnel. And the way the policy is written now, in front of the committee, that's allowed. And that's what was changed for this meeting. It used to say the board will not permit in public session discussing involving individual students and district personnel. The district personnel was taken out of that paragraph as per the discussion at the last board meeting. Because you guys were worried about policing good and bad.
Correct.
Now you guys are gonna allow both.
John?
I'm agreeing with Mr. McCoy. We did talk about that, and the issue was, is the chair, quick enough to catch the good and the bad and make it appear that one is not favored over the other? So we discussed people being allowed to say names.
Ray, your thoughts?
The big thing is the consistency. If we're going to decide to not allow any comments, then it's any comments, good or bad. And I personally would love to hear good things about the district, from the audience. But with that, I guess we'd have to take the bad. So, we have to be consistent in it. And I have confidence that the president can catch, most stuff that isn't supposed to be said. But
Okay, hypothetically speaking, parent goes to the podium and mentions my son, Bill Howard, his teacher, Miss Parker. Go ahead, Mr. Peterson.
I think what my concern is, I think just as a person that is just at this time overseeing staff, I think that there's a lot of times where people come up to the podium and there's a lot of half-truths. And if there is a concern, I think that we should be educating our community how to communicate that concern to administration to get it resolved. I think that what happens sometimes is that there's just a lot of, half-truths, mischaracterizations. There's also legal things that they're misinformed about, or the situation that they're telling is completely, so then time is then spent to correct that narrative. So though it is hard to police, I think that if I'm going to protect any type of staff morale or any type of staff, that we should try to, in some way, shape, or form, protect the staff at the podium. And that's just what my thought is. Because it does become the he said, she said of an incident when we know that a lot of that is not true.
I agree, and it's hard to put toothpaste back in the tube.
Yes.
David, could you speak to this, please?
In a perfect world, the chair of the meeting would be able to immediately catch whether it's good or bad. If you allow the good, you're going to have to allow the bad until you reformulate your policy, distribute it widely, and then you can have a reset. But you can't just allow the good and then say no to the bad. And that puts particularly the chair of the meeting at risk of a First Amendment violation. That's why it's easier to allow the speakers to say whatever they want. They go at their own risk. What they say at the podium does not create liability for the government. It would be true of a school board meeting, a town meeting. They go at their own risk for defamation brought by someone who they may make a defamatory comment about. But if you put the burden on the chair, and the chair then cuts off the bad after we've heard about the good, whether it's the same meeting or the next meeting or thereafter, the suit could come at the chair in a very personal way. That's the real concern about it.
Okay, Ms. Peterson?
I think this goes back, which I'm sure we're going to be communicating tonight about with the public relations, is how are we educating our community, and we're working with our communications department to be able to share the good and the bad. So if you have something good and you would like a staff member highlighted, how are we doing that? How are we educating our community about the bad concerns? Because I think that what we risk is just, again, having to spend time and resources correcting misinformation. Because someone can say something, we're giving a platform, we're giving them, 3 or 5 minutes. I think that's also something that we have to discuss, to say what they want to say, and then we may have to correct what they're saying.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Bergarelli?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, when I spoke before, it wasn't about being afraid of receiving criticism from the community. It's more about what you just said, the inaccuracies that people tend to come out and voice in a public forum. I don't know, I don't think it's a bad thing that we take the time during a meeting to address some of the misinformation to the extent that we can. I don't think it's a bad thing because, once again, they're saying what they're saying in a public forum, and we can correct it in a public forum, and maybe that is a good thing. Well, I think that's a good thing.
And I agree with all. I guess my biggest concern is the potential character assassination when someone comes up and they're and they just go left. And then with this policy, David, that we have now as written, that responsibility would be on the person at the podium, not the district, not the.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions on 1.01?
Are we gonna, it's going to be on the agenda tonight. Are we going to adopt it as written?
It's going to be on the agenda tonight, and during discussion, people can voice their concerns. And it'll go for a vote.
Just on the fly.
So I have down the first paragraph, you're removing non-agenda, and then the fifth paragraph, you're adding guardian.
That is correct.
So with those two revisions, the committee is then pushing that forward to the board?
That is correct.
All right, so if you're gonna revise that, the first paragraph and the fifth would have to be amended on the floor tonight. Because right now, the board is seeing the policy as it's on the screen.
So it needs.
So it needs to be amended before voted on.
Yeah, at the board meeting tonight.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
I'm fine with that, yes.
1.02, please.
Okay, so the next one is a draft policy on student fraternization. This is something that I feel it's important for the board to consider a policy around fraternization. There have been a lot of concerns that have come just from different management angles, and also to have a clear understanding from staff what we consider the fraternization. And we've started to see across school districts across the state, there have been policies that have been developed and really spoken about regarding what the professional relationship and ethical relationship is between a district employee, how we're maintaining safe environments, and how we make sure that we understand that all of our staff members are role models for students. And then it also really kind of describes, from the board perspective, what are appropriate versus inappropriate behaviors with students, and to clearly outline that for staff. So this is a draft policy that I asked Margot to kind of provide the board to review, so that we can really start to have the discussion and try to get something into policy around relationships, and to make it clearly something that is also given upon hire, and we can reiterate it within our building level leaders to staff.
So is this to be discussed tonight or discussed and voted on?
This is supposed to be discussed within policy, and then for us to go through it together as a policy committee, and then to bring it to the next board meeting.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so the next two is for us to discuss and then bring to the larger committee.
Okay, so without going into depth and reading it thoroughly, board members, any questions as explained? I'm sorry, Mr. Shaw?
I have a suggested addition to it, and it's really based upon what we've seen in disciplinary proceedings against staff, where there are these very close social relationships. that at the third paragraph to add the following. So among what's inappropriate in the listing, forming a close social, emotional relationship with a student. So that should be a prohibited conduct. Forming a close social / emotional relationship with a student. It could be after physical displays of affection and before the word giving in the second line of the third paragraph.
Noted. Any questions, Mr. Bergarelli?
Thank you. You know, the only thing I look at with that addition, especially, Mr. Shaw, is that, you know, we want our teachers to know their students. We want our teachers to be, you know, involved with the students. And then in some cases, like the West Street campus, there's a closer bond, it seems, that's by design that we have between, you know, our professionals and the students. I just don't want that verbiage weaponized against, you know, the teachers we like and the teachers we don't like. That's the only thing I'd be concerned about.
Mr. Shaw?
I agree there's a professionalism line to be drawn about giving emotional support and then becoming socially and emotionally engaged with the student.
I agree. I guess my concern here is where is the line that you draw with that relationship? Because I see some relationships that teachers have with students that are pure and it's coming from the heart, but other people will look at it and say it will fall under this category. So how do we make that line? Where is that line drawn, David?
So I'm sorry, just like, you know, along your lines, you know, for instance, a teacher that's very special to a kid in the family gets invited to a birthday party. Well, that's a social, you know, event and everything that's outside of school grounds, you know, and would we look at that, you know, and possibly punish a teacher for something which is a good thing? It's the relationships we want to foster, you know?
I'm going to go to David, and then I'm coming to you, John.
Okay, so I think when you use the terminology, a close social emotional relationship, there are exemplars in decisional law on discipline. And it would really be up to the board and legal counsel to look at the factual scenario and make a judgment as to whether it would be actionable or not. But the point was raised about going to a birthday party. There is an issue about, let me call it family friendships, where a faculty member, his or her family, and a student's family would be social friends. And that might be something that you want to take into account in a policy like this.
Ms. Peterson?
I think that also some of that perhaps, because I think that in some of this, so if we read the paragraph, inappropriate employee behavior includes but is not limited to flirting, making suggestive comments, dating requests for sexual activity, physical displays of affection, giving inappropriate personal gifts, frequent personal communication with a student unrelated to coursework or official school matters, or providing alcohol or drugs to the student, inappropriate touching and engaging in sexual contact or sexual relations. So when I read all of those examples, do you think that it's enough? Because it says that those were things that I would determine would be a close social emotional relationship if any of those actions occurred.
Mr. Shaw?
Think about the concept of grooming and whether or not what you've just articulated goes far enough.
Okay.
John? Mr. Durant?
My concern was, how do we train the teachers on this? What's that mechanism? How do they acknowledge it? And have we identified the designated compliance officer that's identified here as of yet?
That's a good question. David?
I think there can be training on this. And I've actually seen a very sophisticated training that was conducted by Carol Shakeshaft, who is a national expert on grooming. And I think the boundaries can be well established with that kind of expertise as training.
Thank you, Mr. Joe. So my expectation, or I would hope, that prior to having something, a document like this go into play, that we would have the training up front. Ms. Peterson, can you speak to that?
So I thought it was important to embed within the policy was the training portion of it. And so on the second page, the principal or the supervisor responsible from informing. But I think that what we've been trying to work with HR is to also come up with like a calendar of certain things, like workplace harassment, our mandated trainings like bloodborne pathogens and different pathways for us to have these conversations, whether it's data privacy. So I do think that there would need to be a formalized kind of conversation around student relationships, because I do agree with Mr. Brogarelli and him stating like we want our teachers to form relationships with our students. We just need to make sure that they're appropriate, that they are not crossing the line where it can be seen that there's some type of favoritism or inappropriateness. And I think that the implementation of this policy just makes it clear cut, like our expectation is for you to remain professional. Our expectation is that these things don't occur, and that you're aware, if you are, and also if you are aware of something that is raising an eyebrow, that there's a notification. That as a staff member, there's a notification so that it can be investigated with HR around something that we do see that is inappropriate, or we're seeing is inappropriate from a colleague or with a student. So that's also a part of it, that they are to report the incident as well. So we all have a responsibility in keeping our students safe.
Mr. Bergarelli? Oh, John?
I'm good.
Oh, Mr. Bergarelli.
No, as a baseline, as a starting point, I like it. I'm sure Margot did her diligence when she proposed this and, or developed it. Hopefully we can continue to have conversations with other districts that have already adopted said policy or a similar policy. So, we can have the policy that best serves our district.
Ms. Peterson?
So, is your suggestion that a regulation and to just have discussions with other schools? There's several schools that have this already, a couple upstate. I can check about that, and then I can bring the regulation back as well? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, if they've already had this policy, if they've already adopted it and they've lived with it for a little while, it'd definitely be valuable to see what they've run into and what they haven't run into.
Mr. Duray?
Yeah, before it's released, I would like to see the training tightened up. I mean, I'm looking at a sentence, students will be provided such training in an age-appropriate manner. Okay, what training, who's doing it, and how do they acknowledge it? Same with the principal of each school and program will be responsible for informing students. I mean, just from experience, doesn't matter how many principals you have, you're gonna have the training delivered that many times. So what Mr. Shaw was talking about was everybody sits and looks at the same training, and a lot of this training has role-playing in it. They have scenarios, and the participant has to say, hey, is that correct? Is that incorrect? He sent them a text with the homework in it. Is that appropriate? Or someone sent a text that says, meet me after school and I'll give you the homework. That's probably inappropriate. So you have that. And to just throw this policy out there and expect that people are going to adhere to it, it's really, you could really get tripped up with this sort of policy as an employee, as a kid. So I'll go back to put the training component together, then release the policy.
Ms. Peterson?
No, I definitely agree. I think that they're definitely, and this is what the discussion portion of bringing the policy, because I think it is important for us to start having these conversations, and that kind of will lead into our next conversation of how we need to kind of tighten up on some of the management of it, and to have what you guys are looking for as a board for the execution around the regulation and feedback for September 9th. I do think that we have started to try to tighten up and make those trainings automatic, whether they're training modules for our staff so that we can kind of pull in to see who is seeing and completing and going from there. So on the next meeting, I will have those things.
Thank you. I think this is a good first read, but I think this definitely needs to be fine-tuned. And I think the suggestions and recommendations from the board members are appropriate, and I look forward to the next version of this, our next reading. Next item, please.
Okay, so this is our 9150, which is our social media and digital communication policy for staff. And it really goes into what professional use versus personal use regarding staff members. And what are the kind of do's and don'ts, because we know we all have First Amendment rights and we have the ability to engage in social media, but when it comes into professional use and when it comes into mentioning students and picturing students and different things, how do we need to look at this policy and to see if there are changes that are needed to be made. And perhaps this goes back to what Mr. DeRay was saying before in terms of the training piece. We do give this out annually. We do ask that if there's any questions or if there is concerns, we have brought people in on it regarding their understanding of it. But we do feel that there needs to be, and I don't know if this is also something that I asked, is it something, in some cases and spaces, I've seen these two policies, the fraternization and the social media combined, where it was one social media fraternization policy. I've seen that. I don't know if that would be a recommendation for legal or if it's something that we should keep separate. But I do think that we have to strengthen that line around what is involved for that personal versus professional use.
Mr. Shaw, your thoughts on merging or individual?
I don't think merging completely would be the best way to do this. There may be a little bit of overlap and a reference from social media back to the fraternization policy.
Board members, any questions? Mr. Bergarelli? Thank you. I just want to make sure, as far as the two policies being separate, there isn't any contradictions between them, somewhere where one policy, where they would create an issue. I've read them both, but I haven't gone line by line enough to know if I've seen anything like that.
Okay, so I'm going to hand the floor over now to Mr. Shaw in regards to the Title IX sexual discrimination policy for students.
So today we had a very extensive in-service training that covered topics including Title IX, and what we noticed in preparation for it was that we could use an updated Title IX policy for students. And there has been a shift back and forth between the Trump administration, the Biden administration. Then the Biden administration regulations were negated by a Tennessee case that had countrywide implications. So this is a Title IX sexual discrimination policy for students, which is compliant with currently in effect regulations. So we'd like to have this considered by the board. I think we have a pending Title IX matter, and I think it would be helpful to the Title IX investigator to have guidance from a policy like this.
Board members, any questions? Mr. Bergarelli?
No, being that I didn't see this in the agenda, I haven't had a chance to really look at it yet. So I have to reserve any real comments I have.
Mr. DeRay?
No, sir, I'm still reading it. Thank you.
Okay, so David, so we're going to disseminate this to the board members tonight, correct?
I
And
think that would be good.
have, bring it back to policy and then move forward with it, correct?
Sounds right.
Ms. Peterson, you okay with that?
Just a quick question here, because I know that there has been the back and forth. Do we have a current, we have a, this would update and bring us in alignment with all the new laws, correct?
Yes, we would be repealing a policy and replacing it with this.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yeah, could we get this digitally too, so that way a little easier to take a look at, even though I love paper, but digitally?
I believe Mr. McCoy has it.
Yeah, I'll add it.
Thank you. And then just jumping back real quick to the social media and digital communication policy. With AI becoming a thing now, I just want to make sure that that somehow is captured in this, because it's not social media, but it would go under digital communication, I guess. I just want to make sure that AI, in all of the ways we haven't even thought of to use it yet, somehow doesn't slip under, and goes against the spirit of this policy, even though it's not named specifically.
That'd be something you can mention tonight when we go over that, Mr. Bergarelli.
Thank you.
Ms. Peterson, anything else you want to bring before the policy committee?
So in September, once the bargaining units are going to be returning, I know that we still have the 4,000 section, Mr. McCoy? So there was recommended first read for 4,000. So in September, what the plan would be to meet with the units to get the 4,000s, to review that if there was any questions or concerns, and to bring that section back. I did also wanted to also speak on, after we get that, because I think there were very minimal changes in the 4,000 section, some grammatical and just tenses. After that, the next section is the 5,000 section, which is a very, very dense section in terms of student policies, grading, market, how we set up the structures of the year. For consideration to changes of those policies, I would ask that we would be a year out in the implementation in terms of if we decide to change a policy so it doesn't impact the current operation of the district, that those policies would be set forth for the following school year. This would also give us the opportunity, when reviewing that section of 5,000, to have shared decision-making. I'm also thinking that in terms of certain policies, we may want to chunk them. So if we're doing like 5,100 and 5,200, that we're doing that for one policy section, because they're very in-depth, and just to make sure that we're gaining full understanding of how that policy impacts, I may have to invite others to policy committee, because they're all of our student policies around grading, student discipline, so it is a very, very in-depth section. That 5,000 section also, if we are really going to do that thorough review, could take us quite a long time, because I think there's how many are in that section, Mr. McCoy?
20, 30 at least.
Yeah, there's like 20 or 30 policies in that section, so that is going to be something that we may need to be doing slow and steady.
Okay. I have no problem with that. I think that's a great idea and great recommendation. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.